Deep into the Thursday night at Las Vegas was a little swashbuckling dirt racing for round one of the NASCAR K&N Pro Series West Tour. And when it came down to the very last lap, history was set again by one Hailie Deegan, which mirrored her first career win at Meridian. What went down at the dirt? All of that and more, but also what to expect in the next round in Irwindale, and also a summary and thoughts of why the K&N West race should be rescheduled at a different time to help everyone. All of this and more on the very first episode of West Coast Wednesdays, the home of all K&N West news, topics, rumors, and much more. So what are we waiting for? It's time to get the episode going. And now, West Coast Wednesdays. Well, it's about time to get this thing on the road. West Coast Wednesdays. This is where I'm going to be talking about all K&N West stuff, content, and what's on my mind in the world of that series. Because for me, who covered a couple of K&N races for Motorsports Tribune a year ago, since I wanted to continue it in some capacity, this is a way to do it where I talk about it and give my thoughts on a lot of stuff. And in Las Vegas Dirt Race, the season opener, there's a whole lot to discuss. So let's get this thing going with some of the action that went down in the season opener. Austin Reed led the field to the green flag in front of a enthusiastic crowd that's just already witnessed two incredible last lap passes in both the USAC and World Wildlife feature. Unlike a year ago, everybody made it through the opening lap with ease. Reed will lead the opening 8 laps until a little wobble on the high side in turn number 1 gave Derek Kraus the race lead. But it looked like he was in prime championship form early on, as the rest of the field behind him, including Matt Levine, Cody Vanderwall, and Todd Souza, having strong rest early in the going, battling for top 3 spots. Nowhere to be found in the mix early on was Hailie Deegan. Further behind her was a little bit of action. The first caution came out on lap number 20 when the 72 of Kenny Barrera spun in turn 2. A quick green flag run didn't last much longer. It's a few laps later on lap number 27, the number 86 of Tim Spurgeon, which spun in turn number 3, sustained heavy damage on the front end. He would be out of the race, and as a result, Spurgeon was the only driver out as a result of a crash, with only 17 cars remaining. The rest of the race went green, but the action was far from subpar. As several drivers were making moves, Kraus continued on in front of the field, and he will do so coming to the halfway mark. Guys like Jagger Jones and Hailie Deegan were starting to show up, along with Cody Vanderwall and Todd Souza, who all will end up in the top 5. After a 5-minute break, the race resumed for a few laps. However, on lap number 59, the pole steer gets into the back of Trevor Huddleston, sending him to a full 360, and in his first race in the number 9 car proved to be lackluster, as Huddleston was not factored. He would end up 7th. Kraus continued to lead, but as soon as the green flag resumed on lap number 62, the final caution of the night came out after the number 64 of David Hibbert ran on top of the number 17 of Toast, sending him around, sustaining heavy damage on the left side. He would continue, however, and will ultimately finish 14th ahead of Toast. Then on the final restart, on lap number 68, Jagger Jones, in his debut in the K&N West, the championship-winning ride of a year ago, took the lead, and for the next several laps, he was in control to the point that he had this win in the bag. But not far behind was Deegan. Deegan was working her way back up with tremendous restarts and tremendous speed. That will all change as lap traffic proved to be now the game changer. And in the closing lap, Jones's 4+ second lead that he had a while back turned to just a few tenths as Deegan was reeling in on Jones. Then coming to the white flag, the 72 of Barrera was all he had to face from win number 1 or agony to defeat. And then coming into turn number 1, Deegan goes to the bottom, takes the advantage of the lap traffic to get by Jagger Jones entering turn number 2. And just like a year ago in Meridian, 1 lap was all she needed to be in front to get her second career K&N West victory. And for the very first time in a 72-year NASCAR history, a woman is on top of the championship standing. Heartbreak for Jones, as you can see the agony of defeat of what might have been a tremendous debut for the 3rd-generation driver. Here's what Deegan said after the victory.
For some reason in the back of my my mind. I knew it was going to come down to the last lap again. Jagger was so far ahead, and I was like, we just had to hit our marks every single lap. I made a pretty big mistake there, like 20 to go. I was like, I can't do that again if we're going to get this win. And just kept hitting my marks over, and the lappers helped out just a little bit, and we got it done.
You sure did. Hey, Hailie, I saw you in September, and I had to interview when you were not feeling too good after that race. And I got to say, I'm so glad to see the big smile on your face tonight for winning the Star Nursery 100.
Yeah, we did it. In the end, I wasn't going to come out here. I wasn't going to get second again. That's the last thing I was going to do. I was going winner wad over here. And so, yeah. And everyone we did a lot of work after the heat race. We knew we had a lot of work to do, and just sit down, talk, figure it out. And my team backed me up. They went with me, and we brought it home victory.
Here is the final standings of the opener in the Star Nursery 100 at the Dirt at Las Vegas Motors Speedway. Deegan went out to get her second win, and much like a year ago in Meridian, only one lap she led. Jagger Jones put on a tremendous show, leading 31. Joey Tanner, a guy that worked his way to the front from the 15th starting spot, gets third. Cody Vanderwall and Todd Souza running up the top 5. And much like Austin Reed, who went on the high side, he struggled to stay on the bottom and ultimately had to settle for 6th. He led the most laps at 60. 7th is Trevor Huddleston, 8th Travis Milburn, 9th Austin Reed, and Matt Levine rounds out the top 10. And at the bottom half is rookie Brittany Zamora, Kenny Rivera, Rob Powers, David Hibbard, Rich DeLong III, Tony Toast, Takuma Koga, Tim Spurgeon, and Taylor Canfield. And with that, let's take a look at the championship standings. Deegan has a 4-point advantage over Jones, 6 over Joey Tanner, and a tie for 4th is Derek Krause and Cody Vanderwall with 40 points each. 6 is Todd Souza, Trevor Huddleston, Travis Milburn, Austin Reed, and Matt Levine round out the top 10. Reed and Milburn are tied for 8th as a result of Reed leading laps. 21% of the race was under caution with the average green flag run of 13.2, with Austin Reed leading laps 1 through 8, Krause 9 to 68, Jones 69 to 99, and Deegan the 100th and final lap. That's all that went down in Las Vegas, but let's talk about my thoughts of the whole race. I honestly thought it wasn't that bad. But the fact of the matter is, when I was watching it as a viewer, there was a lot of frustrations when I was watching, mostly for the fact that the East Coast audience probably didn't see the memorable victory. And honestly, if you tell me, it's overshadowed Meridian by level 11, because at this moment, everybody's treating it like it's her first career win, like this one's the big one. Mostly because there's a larger audience, because it's conjuncted with the tripleheader in NASCAR. Whereas in Meridian, it was just a standalone, and also you didn't have FanChoice.tv airing it live. You had to wait until the NBCSN tape delay coverage that was the following Friday, or word of mouth that it happened. And you're looking at one of them, because I was one of those people that were at Meridian, one of the only ones that was actually there in Meridian covering that race. So when the news broke out that Deegan won, I personally believe through me, outside of David Siegel and the NASCAR home tracks, outside of them, because they're the ones that relay the news, and I imagine everyone rely on that. But for people like me who was covering it, I'll probably talk more about that trip in Meridian some other time. I want to keep this first episode relatively focused on K&N and K&N news related. But it was rather intriguing that Deegan had to work her way to the front. And it's very similar to what happened in Meridian. Last lap move, Deegan led the only lap, which was the final lap. David Cross was not a factor at the end. And also you had Taylor Canfield. Canfield only ran one lap. He was not a factor. He's basically starting part. We may have further issues that I would like to know, but since NASCAR isn't covering K&N stuff either, we'll probably not know all the full details. But the race was intense. It's a lot calmer, a lot tamer than a year ago where it was all chaos in the opening lap. Everybody ran well. There were no dirt problems. And the race ended just before midnight, which transitions me to talk about this right now. They really need to fix the schedule, especially the timings, because it's inexcusable and unacceptable, mostly for the East Coast audience, to not see this. Honestly. If I was there in Las Vegas and covering it, I had no problem staying up till midnight. I could care less because I got a job to do. But as a consumer, it was rather annoying that the race started nearly at 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time instead of 9:45 as supposed to. Albeit, I understand the world of Outlaws, you cannot predict what will happen. You have red flag for a big incident. You had another one for fuel, where you had to put fuel in the car to close off the deal. I understand those, but there's no reason. The very first session, the very first activity at the dirt track is at 5 o'clock. There's no reason for it to be at 5 o'clock. If you want to have practice, qualifying, and all the heat races, you do it all before 6 o'clock. More so 5 p.m. You get all of them done before 5. And then at 6 p.m., you start your mains. Then, if you get the mains started much earlier, it'll be a lot easier and a lot more fair for everybody watching on the East Coast. And also for everyone that does the job. I know, before you say short tracks run late, yes, we know that. But in my opinion, if I were to organize the schedule, I honestly would have the World of Outlaws as the main event. Then the K&N West would be the middle. And because down in Evergreen, K&N West is not the main. It is the super lane models afterwards. You need to organize. I say USAC starts at 6. K&N West at about 7:15 to 7:30. And then at 9 o'clock, 9:15 if you will, you get the World of Outlaws. That's how I would organize the schedule to make it a lot easier, more fair for all the audiences. Because for those who thought they were going to see heat races at 7 o'clock that was supposed to be scheduled, you didn't get anything at the 7:30 time slot that they were expected. And it leads me to the question of whether or not this was the plan was supposed to be at 7:30 when it was supposed to start. But the tracks did not know that Fans Choice were going to stream it live. And a lot of tracks did not know this. That leaves some confusion and concerns of what would happen with attendance. For me, everyone that follows the K&N stuff or the regional series altogether to watch the races if you cannot. Or you're uneager to wait until tape delay when everything has been spoiled to you, or rely on racing reference to know what went down. Or timing and scoring. Just let your imagination go through. Because it was annoying. It was really annoying that it started this late. And also, lap traffic. Lap traffic, I get it. They're young. Some of them are bound to run regional most of their lives. And they're okay with it. But you got to get out of the way. You have to get out of the way. The fact that lap traffic ultimately dictated the outcome of this race is rather blasphemous. Sure, Deegan did a little bumping, kind of like what you did with Cole Rouse. That's one thing. If Bumbera moved out of the way, I still think Deegan could have probably got by Jones. But it made the situation much easier. As Jones tried to do the bump and run on Deegan as well coming into turn 3, he didn't have enough speed to bump her out of the way. And I definitely feel for Jones because he had a really good race. A really good race. Dale RJ saw something in him to drive a super late model that Josh Berry is most notably known for in that 88 car, One Myrtle Beach. Knowing that the bottom lane is the ideal lane and the only lane to stay in, because otherwise you get shafted to the high side like Austin Reed and Derek Krause, you're done for. You have to tuck back in the inside line, and by that point, if you don't have a fast car or a fast motor, you're bound to be stuck there. Unless trouble happens in front of you. Otherwise, you have to rely on those restarts to get going. It gave the most track precision possible. Here's the thing about Deegan. This was a motivational race for her. She said anything but a win would be disappointment. I think Vanderwall was playing a lot of us saying that Creed would be in that second Levine car. It was Matt Levine in the 10. I think he just basically implied that he was going to play the Creed role. Vanderwall had a nice race. He was not in contention for the win all that much, but he had a pretty good showing in his debut with the alliance with Levine. As I said, you watch for Vanderwall, and then what Jones did, it was really impressive because look at the last couple years in that 6 car. In 2017, it was Julia Landauer. 2018 was Derek Thorne. This year is Jagger Jones. The way he did in his debut, I'm looking for how he does on pavement. More so, I'm looking for how he does at Sonoma, which begs the question whether Sonoma is going to be the NASCAR circuit of the past multiple years, or they're going to run the carousel as well. I say if they run the carousel, I think this would favor Jones, in my opinion, even a Deegan as well. Remember, a year ago, Deegan and Eric Jones had a tremendous battle. They may have not captured it on TV. From what I saw at Sonoma, it was getting really good between Jones and Deegan. Eric Jones, that Jones boy. The other Jones boy had a strong showing. It shows that the Bruncati cars is fast. Doesn't matter who it is in the car. As long as they're gifted drivers and puts us forward out in front and win races, we may have a really good championship battle. That it may not just be Deegan and Krause. It could be Deegan, Krause, and Jones. This will be interesting to follow. And I think the one track that will show us and a lot of people on who's going to be the contenders, who's going to be the favorites, is going to be the next round at Irwindale for the Napa Auto Parts 150. The return at Irwindale. The last time the West ran at Irwindale was the dual races in 2017, which Todd Gilliland swept. Todd Gilliland has won the last 3 of them. More on Gilliland in just a second. And who else has won 3 in a row at Irwindale of no? Brendan Gong. So this is a track where I see the McAnally cars shining. And this is where the 11th place finisher, Brittany Zamora, I think could have a really good showing. Because before signing with McAnally in that 99 car, Zamora ran Deegan's car during testing in the offseason. Probably because of that, she got the ride. So I'd expect her to do well. Of course, this is a huge deal for the Washington side of things because sure you have Tyler Tanner, sure you have Molly Helmuth, but you have Brittany Zamora in a top ride. She won the Northwest Super Late Model Championship. She's one I keep an eye on and see how much progress she makes. Because as you know in the K&N West, if you do really good, you're kept. But this time around, even if you're really good, you're not guaranteed a ride next year. Look at Cole Rouse and Ryan Partridge. They don't have a ride. They're not in the championship trail this season. You got to do the absolute damnness to do really well in the McAnally and the Bruncati cars. Because those are tier A. Everybody else, if they have a really good run and take advantage of their misfortunes, you got to have a perfect race. You got to have a perfect run. It's perfect setup to beat those two teams. So Irwindale may not be the easiest race to get that point across, but it will be interesting how all of the cars do at Irwindale. It's good to see Irwindale back on the calendar as well because it was gone for a complete year and there were some doubts of whether or not Irwindale will ever be back on the calendar once again. But yeah, the true test of the season begins at Irwindale. Sure, yes, you have one road course at Sonoma, you have one dirt track, which was the first time the season openers are in the dirt track since way back in '65, if I recall. There's so much stuff to talk about Irwindale, but that's not until the end of March 30th, I will talk about Irwindale. If there's drivers to keep an eye at Irwindale, I say Jagger Jones, Brittany Zamora, and, of course, the points leader, Hailie Deegan. But I also say keep an eye on Cody Vanderwall and Ryan Partridge, because Partridge Trevor Huddleston. So all of that will be compelling and interesting. And now, the historic stat of the day on West Coast Wednesdays before we close it. Because USAC, because the World Outlaws ran alongside the K&N West, it's the very first time in history that all 3 sanctioning bodies had a race on the very same day. Now the big news I mentioned about Gilliland. Todd Gilliland is under pressure, huge amount of pressure. The multi-time K&N West champion could be losing his ride if he does not step up. I know this is Gainer Outdoors Track Series news, but Gilliland was a West champion, so this does correlate to the West Coast life. And I have high expectations for Gilliland because let's face it, he didn't have a good rookie season. It was a disappointing year in my eye. I thought he was going to come in, overcome that age detriment where he didn't start full-time until he finally turned 18, I think after Charlotte. He had to miss a couple races except Martinsville, which he could have won, by the way. Gilliland lost Rookie of the Year to Myatt Snyder, who is a part-timer. Kyle Busch said it. If you don't pick up the pace, if you don't do well this season, you're done. You're done. Because I see Harrison Burton. I even see Tyler Ankrum, the K&N East champion, having a much better season than Gilliland did a year ago. And it irks me that Gilliland is in that pressure, but I understand where Kyle Busch is coming from. Because you have Harrison Burton. You may have Hailie Deegan in that KBM truck someday. Maybe as early as next year. Gilliland's got to step it up. Period. There's no question about it. He needs to win. If Ankrum wins in his rookie season, as does Harrison Burton. So we'll see how Gilliland does throughout the season. Because it's not looking prominent at this moment. And speaking of Hailie Deegan, it was announced a few hours after her win in Las Vegas that she'll be running a select amount of races, 6 to be exact, to run the Arco Menard Series. She'll run 6 races for Venerini Motorsports, so all things are looking up for Hailie Deegan right now. But the big question is Irwindale, March 30th. That's the true test to the season, because there's 13 more races left, a long ways to go to Phoenix. Anything can happen, and as shown at the season opener, you must have luck on your side, and you must be on top of it. So yeah, this will do it with the very first episode of West Coast Wednesday. Make sure you give DLT Files on Twitter a follow. Luis D. Torres 94 on Instagram a follow as well. I'm not sure how I'm going to plan this whole ordeal, but I guarantee you every time there's a race, the Wednesday after the race happens, you'll be seeing an episode on my channel every time. And I'll be talking about it. And also those hype videos, you'll be seeing a lot of those as well. So in the meantime, without further ado, this has been West Coast Wednesdays. And until we meet again, hope you guys have a wonderful day, evening, and night, whenever you're watching it. and keep the West Coast spirit alive, because without the West Coast or regional racing as a whole, the stars of tomorrow will not be possible. In the meantime, catch you guys later.